Imagine this: you're deep beneath the ocean's surface, surrounded by the tranquil beauty of marine life. The sun's rays barely penetrate the dark waters, and all around you, the world is quiet and serene. But then, out of nowhere, the peaceful silence is shattered. A massive shadow moves beneath you, swift, predatory, and terrifying. Before you can react, a predator's sharp teeth gleam just inches from your body. It's a shark. The danger is real. But just as the situation seems hopeless, something incredible happens that will change everything. This is the story of a diver who, in the midst of a shark attack, was saved in the most unbelievable way. You may think you know what's going to happen next, but trust me, you'll be on the edge of your seat when you hear what unfolds after that dramatic rescue. What happens next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the ocean and its creatures. This isn't just a story about survival. It's a story about the bond between two of the ocean's giants. Two creatures that, at first glance, might seem to live entirely separate lives. But sometimes, the most unexpected alliances are formed in the most dangerous of circumstances. The diver, an experienced adventurer, had been exploring the depths of the ocean for years, accustomed to the beauty and the dangers of the underwater world. They were no stranger to the occasional close call with sharks, but that day was different. The ocean felt off, as though it knew something was coming. The water around them began to shift, and soon they realized the presence of something much larger and far more menacing. They had no time to think before it happened. One wrong move, and there it was, the shark. In the blink of an eye, the diver found themselves face to face with the hunter of the sea, the one creature that had always been a source of fear and awe. The shark was fast, its powerful body cutting through the water like a bullet, closing in on the diver in a heartbeat. Every instinct screamed to swim, to escape, but in the open ocean, with no clear path to safety, escape was impossible. The diver was trapped. Time seemed to slow down, and the closer the shark came, the more desperate the situation became. Panic set in, and yet the diver had only one option left: to fight. But just as the shark lunged forward with jaws wide open, something incredible happened. From the deep blue waters, a massive shape emerged. At first, the diver couldn't believe their eyes. A whale. A giant, graceful, and powerful creature that seemed almost otherworldly in its size and strength. With a surge of energy, the whale moved between the diver and the shark, its massive body creating an impenetrable barrier. The shark, startled by the sheer force of the whale's presence, hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, the diver had just enough time to escape to a safe distance, but the whale wasn't done yet. It wasn't just protecting the diver, it was confronting the shark, in a way no one could have ever predicted. The whale, usually a peaceful giant of the sea, began to push back against the shark. Its enormous tail swished through the water with precision, striking the shark with a force that left the predator momentarily stunned. The diver watched in utter disbelief as the whale, with its incredible strength, stood between them and the shark, refusing to let the predator get any closer. The ocean, usually a place of fear for divers when faced with sharks, suddenly felt like a sanctuary, with the whale standing as a guardian. But that's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The rescue wasn't over, and what happened next would leave everyone questioning the true nature of the ocean and its creatures. After the shark was driven away, the diver, still recovering from the shock of what had just happened, found themselves face to face with something even more mysterious. They didn't know it yet, but the whale had just started an interaction that would lead to an astonishing discovery, something that had never been seen before. What could possibly happen next? How does the relationship between the diver and this incredible whale evolve? And most importantly, what is the real reason the whale chose to intervene in such a dramatic way? This rescue was no ordinary act of kindness. It seemed as though the ocean had orchestrated this event for a much greater purpose. The answers would only come as the diver ventured deeper into the mysteries of the sea, with the whale still by their side. What they learned next would change everything they thought they knew about the ocean and about the creatures who call it home. In the moments after the shark was driven off, the diver and the whale exchanged a silent understanding, one that seemed to transcend words. But the bond wasn't just a matter of survival. It was a deep connection, something beyond the instinct to protect or defend. The diver had come to realize that this encounter was part of something bigger, something far more profound. As they began to swim alongside the whale, the diver couldn't help but wonder what had brought the two together in the first place. Why had the whale chosen to intervene in such a dramatic way? Was it simply an act of instinct, or was there something more to this incredible encounter? Was the ocean trying to show them something, or had the whale simply been in the right place at the right time? Whatever the answer was, the diver knew one thing for sure: their life had just been changed forever. But just as the diver and the whale swam deeper into the open ocean, the tension wasn't over. The shark may have been driven off for now, but the ocean is unpredictable, and danger often lurks where least expected. As they ventured further, the diver couldn't shake the feeling that something else was watching them, something far more elusive and powerful than a shark. The ocean holds secrets, and not all of them are meant to be discovered. What happens next is a story that will make you question the mysteries of the ocean and the creatures that inhabit it. Will the diver and the whale face yet another challenge in the deep, or is there something even more extraordinary waiting for them, just beyond the horizon? The answers lie ahead, and you won't want to miss what unfolds next. Stay tuned for the second part of this incredible story. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. The diver, still floating in the open water, clung to the remnants of their calm. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving only a mixture of disbelief and awe. They could still feel the surge of the whale's tail pushing the shark away, the force of the underwater currents that rippled with the creature's movements. But now, with the shark gone, there was only silence. The kind of silence that blankets everything, leaving behind a sense of anticipation. The diver had always known that the ocean was full of mysteries, but nothing could have prepared them for this moment. The whale, once a shadowy figure in the distance, had become an unspoken presence beside them. It was as though the whale had chosen to swim alongside the diver, leading them deeper into the vast expanse of water. The creature moved effortlessly, its massive body gliding through the water with such grace that it almost didn't seem possible for something so large to be so fluid. The diver couldn't help but marvel at the sight. Whales were known to be gentle giants, but this whale had just saved their life. And now it was staying with them. Why? At first, the diver had thought it was a fluke, an accident. Whales were not known to interact with humans in this way, especially when there was no immediate threat to themselves. They weren't curious like dolphins, nor were they the types of creatures to actively seek out humans in the way some other marine animals might. But this whale wasn't behaving like any whale the diver had ever encountered. It wasn't just a passive observer. It seemed almost protective. There was something in the way it swam, the way it stayed close, as though it was guiding the diver deeper into the ocean. The diver felt a strange pull to follow. It was as if the whale was inviting them into a world they could never have imagined. The deep, dark blue of the ocean stretched out endlessly in every direction, but there was something comforting about the whale's presence. For a moment, the diver wondered if this could be the start of an adventure unlike any they had experienced. An adventure that went beyond the surface of the sea and into something much older, much deeper. But the deeper they went, the more unsettled the diver began to feel. The world around them had grown darker, the sunlight filtering down from above, gradually losing its warmth. The further they swam, the colder the water became, and with each passing moment, the sense of mystery grew more profound. It wasn't just the temperature or the increasing darkness that made the diver uneasy. It was the feeling that something else was out there, watching them. The whale, for all its size and strength, didn't seem troubled by the deepening shadows. It moved with a purpose, as though it had a destination in mind. The diver, though still shaken from the earlier shark encounter, decided to follow, swimming steadily behind the creature. It wasn't as though they had much of a choice. The whale seemed intent on leading them forward. The idea of turning back didn't even cross their mind. They were already too far out. As they swam deeper, the ocean floor gradually became visible, its rocky surface glowing faintly in the dim light. Strange formations rose from the seabed, creating eerie silhouettes in the water. The diver couldn't help but wonder if they had stumbled upon a part of the ocean that had never been explored. The rocks were jagged, their edges sharp and uneven, creating an unsettling labyrinth of underwater passageways. The air around them felt thick with ancient energy, as if the ocean itself held memories too vast to comprehend. Then, without warning, the whale paused. It stopped moving, its massive body frozen in place. The diver, not daring to disrupt the fragile silence, watched as the whale's enormous tail flicked gently, sending small ripples through the water. But the whale wasn't alone. Something else was down there, something the diver hadn't noticed before. A shadow loomed beneath them, large and undulating, its movements slow and deliberate. The diver's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't a shark this time. No, it was something much larger, something more mysterious. The shadow was so immense that it seemed to stretch across the entire ocean floor. For a moment, the diver couldn't breathe. The water around them grew colder still, and the temperature dropped even more. Their instincts told them to swim back to the surface, to escape whatever was lurking below. But the whale didn't move. It remained still, as if waiting. The shadow grew closer. Now, the diver could make out its shape, a massive, elongated figure, moving with eerie grace beneath the waves. It wasn't a predator, at least not in the way a shark was. No, this thing was something older, something that felt ancient, its presence carrying an undeniable weight. As it drew nearer, the diver could feel the power emanating from it, a force that could not be ignored. Just as the shadow seemed to close in, the whale moved once again. This time, it swam toward the shadow, its movements deliberate, as though it knew exactly what it was doing. The diver, filled with both fear and fascination, remained motionless, watching in disbelief. What was happening? What was this creature, and what connection did it have with the whale? The whale and the shadow exchanged something, an almost imperceptible interaction that the diver could barely comprehend. There was no sound, no sign of aggression, only a strange sense of understanding. The diver felt like an outsider in a world they didn't belong to, a mere witness to something far beyond human knowledge. The shadow shifted once again, moving toward the whale. But this time, it wasn't alone. As the shadow came closer, more forms began to emerge from the depths, like ghosts from the ocean's past. They moved in unison, their bodies flowing like liquid in the water, merging with the shadows to create an eerie, almost hypnotic dance. The diver's breath quickened, heart racing. This wasn't just an ordinary encounter. It was something extraordinary. What were these creatures, and why had the whale brought the diver here, to this mysterious and seemingly ancient gathering? Before the diver could process what they were witnessing, something else caught their attention. The water, which had felt still and calm moments ago, began to churn. The surface of the ocean seemed to ripple as though something beneath was stirring, agitated. The feeling of being watched returned, stronger than before. The diver turned, eyes scanning the dark expanse of water. And there, lurking at the edge of their vision, was a pair of eyes. The eyes were enormous, almost glowing in the dim light. They were fixed on the diver, unblinking and unrelenting. This time, it wasn't a shadow that had emerged, but a presence that felt intelligent, intentional. A chill ran down the diver's spine as the eyes grew closer, moving through the water with unnatural speed. The whale, which had been so calm moments ago, began to swim faster, its body cutting through the water with greater urgency. The diver, feeling the shift in the atmosphere, knew that something was changing. But what was it? What was lurking in the depths of the ocean, and why had it been watching them? The shadows continued to move, circling in a strange, deliberate pattern, as though they were forming some sort of ritual. And at the center of it all were the eyes, the presence that seemed to control everything. The whale, now moving faster than ever, appeared to be leading the diver away from the gathering, steering them in the opposite direction. But the diver couldn't shake the feeling that they were being drawn into something they couldn't escape. The ocean, once so familiar, now felt like a vast, alien world, one where the rules were different, where survival wasn't guaranteed. The whale, though a protector moments ago, seemed more like a guide now, navigating the diver away from whatever it was that was stirring in the dark waters below. But as they swam away, the diver couldn't help but wonder, was the whale truly protecting them? Or was it trying to lead them to something? Something they were never meant to see. Something far darker than a shark, or even the creatures they had witnessed moments before. The ocean, vast and endless, held secrets that even the whale seemed afraid to unveil. The diver didn't know what would happen next. But one thing was certain: their journey into the depths had just begun. And the ocean, in all its terrifying beauty, was waiting to reveal what it had hidden for so long. Stay tuned, because what comes next will be a revelation unlike any other. You won't believe what the diver uncovers in the heart of the ocean. And neither will they. The water around the diver seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment. The deeper they swam, the more the ocean seemed to press in from all sides. The whale, which had once seemed like a reassuring presence, now felt distant, its movements swift and deliberate, as though it was leading them away from something, not toward it. The diver struggled to keep up, their breaths coming in short gasps through the regulator. It wasn't just the physical exhaustion. They could feel the weight of the ocean's mysteries pressing down on them, suffocating in its depths. The shadows beneath them had stopped moving, but the presence was still there, watching from the darkness. It was as though the ocean had become a living thing, an ancient force that had been stirred, awakening to the diver's intrusion. The feeling of being hunted, of being followed, gnawed at the diver's insides. The eyes, those glowing eyes, were still watching, but they were no longer in front of them. No, they were behind, watching, waiting. The diver couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was down there had learned to move in silence, to hide in the deep, dark waters where no human could reach. The whale didn't slow down. It moved like a shadow through the blue expanse, its immense form cutting through the water without hesitation. But the diver could feel it now. This wasn't just about safety. The whale wasn't trying to protect them anymore. It was trying to outrun something. The sense of urgency in the whale's movements was unmistakable. It wasn't simply avoiding danger. It was escaping from something. The diver's heart pounded as they tried to keep up, but their body was growing tired. The deeper they went, the darker it became, and the pressure in the water was beginning to feel suffocating. The ocean, which had once seemed like an open playground, now felt like a maze, a labyrinth where escape was impossible. Each twist and turn through the water only deepened the sense of being trapped. The whale was leading them into an unknown territory, a place where few humans had ever ventured, and even fewer had returned. Suddenly, the water seemed to change. It was subtle at first, a slight shift in temperature that the diver could feel on their skin. The pressure around them increased. It wasn't just the physical force of the deep ocean. It was something else, something palpable. The ocean was no longer just a body of water. It was alive, aware. Every stroke the diver took, every movement they made, seemed to stir something in the depths. And then it happened. A deep rumble, a low vibration in the water, echoed through the ocean. It was like a heartbeat. At first, the diver thought it was just the sound of their own breath, but then the vibration grew stronger, more intense. It was coming from deep within the ocean, beneath the floor, from somewhere far beyond the reach of any diver. The whale stopped, its massive body frozen in place. The diver paused too, confused, heart racing. Whatever it was growing louder, vibrating through the water like a sound that resonated from the very core of the earth. The diver glanced at the whale. There was no mistaking the urgency in its eyes now. The gentle giant that had once seemed so calm was now in full alert, its enormous fluke flicking through the water in rapid, deliberate movements. It was trying to get away, to push forward, but the deep rumble grew louder, more insistent. The diver could feel it now, too. The sense of being trapped was overwhelming. There was nowhere to go. The rumble grew louder still, until it was a constant, unrelenting vibration that shook the water. And then something else happened. A massive shape emerged from the darkness, moving impossibly fast through the water. It was enormous, far larger than the whale itself, its movement so swift that it seemed to cover hundreds of meters in mere seconds. The diver's heart skipped a beat, their breath catching in their throat. This was no ordinary creature. This was something ancient, something powerful beyond belief. It moved with incredible speed, its shape shifting through the dark waters, impossibly large, a true leviathan of the deep, and it was heading straight for the diver. The whale turned in a flash, its body angling toward the oncoming force, but it was clear it wasn't fast enough. The creature wasn't just approaching, it was chasing. The diver could feel the water moving with a violent force as the massive entity tore through the deep, closing in with terrifying speed. The ocean was alive with its presence. The rumble was deafening now, the force of the creature's movements sending shockwaves through the water. The diver's mind raced, adrenaline flooding their system. There was no escape. There was no way to outswim it. They were completely outmatched. The whale had been their protector, but now it seemed like they were both powerless against the vast, unknowable force that was coming for them. And then, just as the giant creature loomed ever closer, the whale did something unexpected. It swam directly toward it, facing the massive predator head-on. The diver watched in awe, disbelief creeping in. Was the whale trying to fight it? Was it trying to protect them, even at the cost of its own safety? The sheer size of the two creatures in that moment was almost overwhelming. The whale, with all its grace and power, positioned itself between the diver and the creature, as if standing its ground, unwilling to let the predator get any closer. The water swirled around them, the pressure growing to unbearable levels as the ocean seemed to convulse with the weight of the two ancient forces. The diver had no idea what would happen next. Would the whale be able to hold its ground, or was this the moment the ocean's depths would claim them both? The looming creature was now just meters away, its eyes gleaming in the dark, a true apex predator. There was no sign of mercy. The battle between the two titans of the deep was imminent. The diver's instincts screamed to turn and swim back to the surface, but their body wouldn't move. They were frozen, unable to tear their gaze away from the unfolding spectacle. The ocean had become a battleground, a place where survival wasn't guaranteed, and where the very laws of nature seemed to bend and twist with each passing second. It was a place where even the most majestic creatures could be brought to their knees. As the two colossal beings prepared to clash, the diver's mind raced. What was this creature? What was it that had stirred it from the depths? And why had the whale brought them here, to this moment of confrontation? The tension in the water was unbearable, the weight of the unknown pressing in from every direction. The diver was trapped in the middle of it all, a helpless observer to a battle that was beyond human understanding. There was no escape, no way to know how this would end. And yet, in the midst of this terror, the diver could feel a strange sense of anticipation, a sense that the ocean was about to reveal something that could change everything. The whale's enormous body prepared for the inevitable clash. The ocean seemed to hold its breath. And then, in the space between heartbeats, everything changed. In the stillness of the water, as the massive creatures faced off, something unexpected occurred. The sound of the ocean seemed to change. The deep rumble that had filled the water moments ago softened, but not in the way the diver had hoped. No, it was different. It was a shift, a subtle but undeniable tremor in the very core of the ocean itself. The whale, its vast body bracing for impact, turned its head slightly, its eyes wide and alert. It wasn't just looking at the creature it had positioned itself against. It was looking at something else, something more. The diver's pulse quickened. There was a second presence, a second force in the water now, something far larger than the massive predator that had been charging them moments earlier. A sense of foreboding filled the water, a ripple of danger that seemed to travel through every inch of the ocean, leaving no place untouched. And then, from the deep, came a sound. Not the gentle waves, nor the eerie silence of the ocean, but a low, almost bone-shaking growl. It was deep, primordial, a noise that seemed to echo through time itself. The diver's heart stopped. This wasn't just another creature. This was something ancient, something far older than either the whale or the monstrous predator that had been looming before them. The growl reverberated through the water, shaking the ocean floor, making everything tremble. It was as though the very ocean itself had come alive, stirred by forces that could not be controlled. The whale, its eyes wide with what seemed to be pure panic, pushed the diver backward with a single powerful movement. The protective instinct of the great creature was no longer enough to shield them from what was coming. It was clear now. This was no longer just a battle for survival. This was a struggle between forces of nature far beyond their understanding. The giant predator, once the terrifying force in the water, seemed to hesitate, caught off guard by the new sound, the new presence. It recoiled slightly, its gaze shifting, its massive body momentarily frozen in place. For a moment, the diver dared to hope that the creature might back down. But they soon realized that this wasn't a simple confrontation. There was no way out. The new presence was closing in fast, and its power was palpable. It wasn't just the water that was shaking. The very currents were shifting, pushed by something enormous, something that could not be ignored. The diver, their mind racing, tried to make sense of the situation. What was this new force? Where had it come from? And why had the whale, once so calm and assured, turned into a creature filled with fear? The sense of unease crept up their spine. The danger was real. The stakes had just been raised in a way they couldn't comprehend. The ocean around them seemed to darken, as though something was blocking out the light from above. It wasn't the usual shadow of a passing cloud. No, this was something far more immense, far more terrifying. The water turned cold, icy even, as the pressure increased. The diver could feel it deep in their bones. The creature was here, and it was massive. Out of the blackness emerged a form, something the diver couldn't fully grasp. At first, it seemed to be a blur, but as it drew nearer, the details became clearer. It was enormous, unlike anything the diver had ever seen. A massive, serpent-like body, covered in scales that shimmered with an eerie glow. Its head, long and angular, rose from the depths like a beast from some forgotten myth. Its eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, locked onto the whale and the predator, with an intensity that was almost hypnotic. It wasn't a simple predator. It wasn't just another force of nature. This creature had purpose. It wasn't here by accident. It was ancient, intelligent, and it seemed to be aware of the diver's presence. There was something almost sentient in its gaze, a terrifying awareness of everything around it. And it was no longer just an observer. It was a player in the game of survival. The whale, for the first time, appeared vulnerable. Its immense body seemed dwarfed by the creature before them. The predator, too, seemed to recognize the threat. No longer the dominant force in the water, it hesitated, caught between two unstoppable forces, the whale and this new monstrous presence. And in that moment of hesitation, the diver understood. This was no longer about escaping a shark or seeking shelter from the depths. This was a battle for supremacy, and they had become nothing more than a spectator in a contest far beyond their understanding. The tension in the water was unbearable. The diver couldn't tell who was more dangerous, the whale or the new creature. They were both fighting for control of the ocean. The vast, endless sea had suddenly become a battlefield, and the diver, small and vulnerable, was caught in the middle of it all. The growl from the new creature echoed again, louder this time, and the water shook with the power of it. It wasn't just an animalistic growl. It was a warning, a declaration of intent. The predator, now realizing it was outmatched, began to retreat, its massive body moving with surprising speed as it fled back into the darkness of the depths. The diver watched, breathless, as the creature's head rose higher above the water, its glowing eyes fixed on the whale. The two titans seemed to regard each other for a long moment, each aware of the other's power. And then, without any further warning, the whale made a sudden, forceful move, swimming directly at the creature. The diver's mind raced. What was the whale doing? Was it challenging the new threat, or was it trying to drive it away? The ocean around them churned violently as the two creatures collided, their immense bodies creating shockwaves that rippled through the water. The sound was deafening, like thunder underwater. The diver could hardly hold on, the force of the currents threatening to pull them away. And then, just as quickly as it had begun, the battle stopped. The two creatures parted, slowly, cautiously. It was as though they were testing each other, each unwilling to fully commit, each unsure of how to continue. The diver could feel their heart racing in their chest. What had just happened? Had the whale won? Or was this only the beginning of something far more terrifying? The whale circled the creature warily, but it didn't engage again. It seemed to be waiting, sizing up its opponent, watching closely. The diver, now caught in the eye of the storm, felt as though they were suspended in time. The calm that had settled into the ocean after the clash was almost worse than the chaos itself. The water was still, but there was an unmistakable tension that hung in the air. In the distance, the diver saw something else, something even more unsettling, a flicker of movement in the deep, a dark shape that seemed to grow larger with each passing second. The whale and the creature were no longer alone. The ocean was full of eyes. The battle for dominance was far from over, and the diver, now utterly helpless, could only watch as the forces of the ocean prepared for whatever would come next. The stakes were higher than ever. The tension was unbearable, and with every passing second, the diver could feel the inevitability of what was about to happen. But what would that be? Would the whale survive this latest encounter? Or would the ocean claim them all, its dark secrets too vast to understand? The next moments were crucial, and as the ocean held its breath, the diver realized that they were no longer just a witness. They were part of something far greater than themselves, something that was about to change everything. The tension in the water was unbearable. The massive whale and the glowing creature circled each other, sizing one another up, neither willing to make the first move. The diver could feel their heart pounding, their pulse echoing in the deep silence of the ocean. Time seemed to stretch on forever, each second feeling like an eternity as the two titans eyed each other from either side. The water around them was still, eerily calm, as though holding its breath, waiting for the next move. And then, without warning, the creature lunged. It was faster than the diver could comprehend, a flash of light in the murky water as it surged toward the whale with deadly speed. But just as quickly, the whale responded. With a powerful surge, it turned and lunged toward the creature, meeting it head-on. The impact was deafening, the force of the two creatures colliding sending shockwaves through the ocean. The diver was knocked back, struggling to maintain their hold on the whale's body, their mind reeling from the intensity of the battle. The once clear water was now murky with the churn of movement, the two creatures locked in a struggle that seemed to shake the very foundation of the ocean. The force of their movements caused waves to crash and swirl, the deep depths of the water becoming a violent, unpredictable maelstrom. For a moment, the diver thought it was all over. The whale's body trembled, its immense size seeming to falter beneath the onslaught of the creature's attacks. The massive form of the whale swayed, its movements becoming less sure, its breath more strained. It was clear that the creature was not just another predator. It was a force to be reckoned with. But just as the diver began to lose hope, something remarkable happened. The whale, using every ounce of strength it had left, began to push the creature back. Slowly but surely, it gained ground, its massive body shifting with surprising agility. The diver watched in awe as the whale seemed to tap into some primal instinct, a final burst of energy that forced the creature back into the depths. The struggle continued, but now the creature was no longer the one in control. The whale was gaining the upper hand, pushing forward with a ferocity that could only come from the desperate need to survive. And then, in a final decisive move, the whale broke free from the creature's grasp. It surged forward, its tail fin cutting through the water with a force that sent shockwaves rippling outward. The enormous creature, once poised to dominate, was now retreating, its massive body slowly fading into the deep, vanishing into the inky blackness of the ocean. The water grew still again, but this time it was different. The danger had passed. The diver, gasping for breath, felt the weight of the moment sink in. The battle had been won, at least for now. The whale, exhausted and battered, swam slowly, its movements sluggish as it turned back toward the surface. The diver, still gripping onto its massive form, could feel the relief in the air, the tension that had gripped them for so long beginning to dissipate. But just as the diver thought they were free, something unexpected happened. A sudden jolt, faster than anything the diver could have anticipated, rippled through the water. The whale jerked, its body convulsing in a violent thrash. It was as though an unseen force had struck it, a shockwave of energy that sent the whale reeling. The diver barely had time to react before they were pulled off balance, tossed violently in the water. Something had changed. Something was wrong. The diver's eyes darted around, desperate for some explanation. And then, emerging from the darkness, they saw it, a massive, shadowy figure, moving impossibly fast through the water. It was another predator, one even larger than the first. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, its body rippling with unnatural power. But this time, the diver wasn't just facing an ordinary sea creature. This was no mere animal. It was something else, something ancient. The creature glided toward them with a terrifying speed, its presence radiating pure malevolence. It wasn't just hunting. It was stalking, calculating its every move, sizing up its prey with eerie precision. The whale, though battered, instinctively turned to face the new threat, positioning itself between the diver and the creature. But this time, there was no fear in the whale's eyes. It was as if the whale knew something the diver didn't. It was ready for this battle, ready for whatever the ocean had to throw at them next. The diver's heart raced as they realized the stakes had just been raised once again. This new predator was unlike anything they had seen before. Its eyes, glowing with an unnatural hue, locked onto the diver, as if sensing the fear in their heart. It wasn't just a creature of the deep. It was something far older, something that had been here long before humanity had even existed. It was a force of nature, a predator that had been lying in wait, biding its time. As the creature neared, the water around them began to tremble again. The ocean was alive with the power of the new arrival. The ground beneath the diver's feet seemed to shift, as if the very earth was moving in response to the creature's presence. It was a sensation that sent a chill down their spine. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a war for dominance in the ocean's deepest reaches. And the diver, now caught in the heart of it all, could only hold their breath and wait for the inevitable clash. But just as the creature reached the whale, something extraordinary happened. The ocean seemed to part, the water swirling in a perfect circle around the two titans, and from within the depths, another shape emerged, a figure far larger than either of the predators. The diver could hardly believe their eyes. It was the legendary creature the whale had been protecting them from all along, the one that had been silently watching from the shadows, the one that the ocean had been hiding. The diver had never seen anything like it, an ancient leviathan, its scales shimmering with an ethereal glow. Its eyes were the color of the deepest, darkest abyss, and they shone with an ancient, knowing wisdom. In that moment, everything clicked into place. The whale hadn't just been protecting the diver from the creatures in the deep. It had been protecting them from something far more powerful, something far more ancient. The battle they had witnessed wasn't just a fight between predators. It was a fight for the ocean's balance. And the diver, now in the presence of the ocean's true ruler, understood that they had been swept into a battle far beyond their comprehension. The true predator wasn't the shark. It wasn't the giant serpent. It was the ancient creature, the Leviathan, the one that had been watching, waiting. And now, as it emerged from the depths, it was time to claim its dominion over the ocean once more. The diver, caught between these unimaginable forces, could only watch in awe as the waters began to stir, the final showdown unfolding before their eyes. And as the ancient Leviathan's glowing eyes locked onto the diver one last time, they realized the truth. This battle for dominance had only just begun, and in the depths of the ocean, where light never reaches, the true power of the deep would always rule. The ocean was silent for a long moment, the weight of the confrontation between the ancient Leviathan and the creatures of the deep hanging in the water like a storm cloud. The diver, still clinging to the whale's massive back, could feel their heart pounding, their breath shallow. They had never imagined that the world beneath the waves was so vast, so filled with untold dangers, and so governed by forces beyond their understanding. It was as though they had stepped into a forgotten realm where time and space had no meaning, a place where survival was no longer just about physical strength, but about understanding the unseen balance that controlled the depths. The Leviathan's eyes glowed like twin moons, casting an eerie light on the dark waters. It was a creature of immense power and ancient wisdom, a being that had ruled the oceans long before any human had dared to dream of the vastness beneath the surface. The diver could sense that it wasn't just another predator. It was a guardian, a ruler who had watched over the deep, ensuring that its delicate balance was maintained. In its presence, all other creatures seemed small, insignificant, even the massive whale that had been their protector. For a moment, the two creatures, the Leviathan and the whale, stood locked in a strange, silent standoff, as if both were sizing each other up. The ocean around them was still, the tension palpable, as if the very sea itself was waiting for something to happen. The predator that had first appeared, the shark-like creature, seemed to retreat further into the depths, no longer daring to challenge the power of the Leviathan. And the whale, though battered and exhausted from its earlier battle, slowly began to swim toward the surface, its movements steady but cautious. It had fought to protect the diver, but now, with the Leviathan's arrival, it was clear that its role in the ocean's hierarchy was not one of dominance, but of balance. The diver, still holding on to the whale, could hardly believe what they were witnessing. It was as though the ocean itself had revealed its deepest secrets in a single breathtaking moment. What had once seemed like a life-or-death struggle was now something else entirely, a reminder of the fragile equilibrium that governed the world beneath the waves. The creatures of the deep, from the smallest fish to the largest whale, all had a place in the grand scheme of things, and now, the diver understood that they were just one small part of a much larger, more complex system. But just as the diver began to feel a sense of awe and understanding, the Leviathan's gaze shifted back toward them. Its eyes locked onto the diver's, and for a brief, terrifying moment, the diver felt a jolt of fear run through their body. It wasn't the fear of an animal or predator. It was the fear of being seen, of being recognized by something so ancient and powerful that it seemed to encompass all the mysteries of the ocean itself. The Leviathan was aware of them, aware of their presence, and the diver could feel the weight of that awareness bearing down on them. For a moment, the ocean seemed to hold its breath. The diver, unsure of what would happen next, could only hold on to the whale and wait. The whale, for its part, seemed unbothered by the Leviathan's gaze. It continued to swim slowly toward the surface, its powerful tail cutting through the water with a steady rhythm. The Leviathan, meanwhile, did not move, its gaze unwavering as it watched the diver. It was as though it were waiting for something, as though it knew that this was not yet the end of their encounter. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the Leviathan began to move. Slowly, it turned its massive body, its tail sweeping the ocean with the force of a tidal wave. The water around the diver surged, pushing them gently forward, and they instinctively tightened their grip on the whale. The Leviathan didn't attack, didn't pursue. They simply moved on, disappearing into the depths of the ocean with the same grace and power that had marked its arrival. As it faded from view, the diver felt a strange sense of peace, as if they had witnessed something truly extraordinary, something that could never be fully understood but would always be remembered. With the Leviathan gone, the water began to calm once more. The surface above them was still distant, but the tension that had gripped the ocean had finally begun to dissipate. The whale, now seemingly at ease, continued its slow ascent toward the light above. The diver, exhausted and shaken, allowed themselves to relax slightly, though they couldn't shake the sense of awe that had come from their encounter with the ancient creature. The balance of the ocean had been restored, and they were once again a small part of it. As the whale reached the surface, the diver felt the rush of cool air on their face, the light of the sun breaking through the water above. They were free. The ocean, in all its vastness and mystery, had revealed its most hidden secrets to them, and they had survived to tell the tale. But even as they rose to the surface, the diver knew that this was not just a story of survival. It was a reminder of the power and beauty of the natural world, of how fragile and interconnected everything was. They had been a part of something much larger than themselves, a part of the rhythm of life that played out beneath the waves. The diver took a deep breath as they broke through the surface, the salty air filling their lungs. The boat was waiting for them, the crew shouting in relief as they saw the diver emerge from the water, alive and safe. They were pulled aboard, and the boat began its journey back to shore. But as the diver sat there, catching their breath and looking out at the horizon, they couldn't shake the feeling that their experience beneath the waves had changed them forever. The ocean was not just a place of danger and beauty. It was a world in itself, filled with creatures and forces beyond human comprehension. It was a world governed by ancient rules, by balance and power that stretched back through time. The diver had seen a glimpse of that world, and in doing so, they had been forever altered. As the boat sped toward the shore, the diver thought about the whale, about the Leviathan, and about the deep, uncharted waters that lay beneath them. They thought about the creatures that ruled the depths, the mysteries that remained hidden, and the delicate balance that kept everything in place. They had been part of that balance, if only for a brief moment, and they would never forget it. The ocean had shown them something extraordinary, something that most people would never experience. It had revealed its most dangerous secrets, but it had also shown them its most incredible wonders. And in that moment, the diver realized that there were some mysteries in the world that were meant to remain unsolved. Some stories that were too vast, too ancient, to ever be fully understood. The journey back to shore felt different, as though the diver had crossed some invisible threshold. They had seen the power of the deep, felt the weight of ancient forces, and survived an encounter with creatures beyond human imagination. The ocean had changed them, and they would never look at the world beneath the waves the same way again. And as the boat sailed back toward the shore, the diver couldn't help but wonder, what other secrets did the ocean hold? What other creatures lurked in the depths, waiting for their turn to reveal themselves? And would they ever truly understand the mysteries of the sea, or were they simply meant to exist as witnesses, forever humbled by the vastness and power of the ocean? One thing was certain, the ocean's story was far from over. And for the diver, their journey had only just begun.